Lee University considering limiting student speech as "Don't Say Gay." A private Christian university is considering strictly limiting the free speech rights of its students when it comes to sexuality and gender, from how they behave to what they wear and what they can say on campus or even online. According to published reports, if approved, the policy presented to faculty and staff at Lee University in Cleveland, Tennessee, would not allow students to identify as anything other than their biological sex. They also would, according to a spokesman, Kendra Mann, she released a statement saying the policy has been in the works for years and is in line with long-standing theological beliefs. The school, which gets its funding in part from the Church of God, had planned to get more feedback before publishing its statement of beliefs concerning human sexuality and gender ahead of the fall semester. The draft policy declares that biological sex is binary and says, quote, humans do not have the ability or observed right to choose a gender. No member of the Lee University community may publicly identify or behave as a gender that does not correspond to his or her biological sex. No member of the Lee University community may promote or advocate in person, in writing, or online for sexual acts, behaviors, or lifestyles that are contrary to the scripture. This statement of belief or any other university policy. The policy also forbids sex between unmarried heterosexuals. Wow.
Just no. I love how certain groups that are against other groups like to start using they like to start infringing on rights, specifically freedom of speech, because at the end of the day, if you're not allowed to say something, you're not allowed to get that information out there in some way, shape, or form, then yes, you're going to lose out on something. But if the same thing happened to them, that those rights were infringed upon about them, totally different, and they'd be upset. And I'm sure that any LGBT individuals who attend this school are definitely going to be upset learning this if they aren't already.
And they go back in the closet out of fear.
Right. But that is the question. I mean, if you already know that this is a conservative, so-called Christian university in Cleveland, Tennessee, if you know this going in, it really makes me wonder if you were gay or questioning, would you even apply to a school like this? Would you want to attend this?
They definitely have LGBT students at the university.
Yeah.
I've read comments from LGBT students.
And are students leaving? Are they
They might be, but it's also about their religion. It comes to that aspect. Like, some people are so tied to their religion or one specific aspect of their identity. For example, all of my siblings went to HBCUs. I didn't. And that's because they felt very strongly in wanting to go there. But I didn't care. On the reverse side, I didn't want to go to a Christian school or anything like that, even though I was raised that way. I don't want to judge them, but I also ask that question of why not go somewhere else?
Right. I'll judge them. I'd like to set the scene. This is East Tennessee, very Republican. It's outside of Chattanooga. It's, like I said, deeply red. I went on to Lee University's website today. Their picture at the top of their homepage is like something out of the 1950s or 60s. Like, you can tell it is, no, I'm not like saying it's like something. No, it's an actual picture from the 50s or 60s. All white people, all very, we're conservative and all this. And I watched a video. They did a 90-minute documentary on the history of their, and so I just sort of skipped through, but I stopped around the 60s. They admitted their first black female student by accident because students who were applying had to attach a photo, and she looked light-skinned. That's how they got their first black female student, and that didn't come until the 1960s. So this is a place that is not particularly progressive. We should have all known that. But I encourage you, if you want to, take a look at their history, because it ain't pretty.
But also, sorry.
Go ahead. You
Also, some of these kids don't have a choice. Their parents choose the school for them. They give them the education that they want them to have. They send them to the church they want them to pray to. And so they're trapped in many cases in these situations they can't get themselves out of. So, you're fortunate you could choose a school that you wanted to go to as opposed to your brothers and sisters. But, not everyone has that option, especially in Tennessee.
I think a couple of thoughts. First, can Lee University do this? It's been brought up several times. They absolutely can. They absolutely
college, right?
can.
Private.
Because it's private.
And it won't, because it's a private Christian school. And in the environment that we are currently in with the Supreme Court, if this gets to the Supreme Court, a majority decision is going to support Lee and being able to do it. So it's pointless to talk about whether it's right or wrong. Really, the first question is, can they do it? And the answer is yes. The more important question for me is, will this policy succeed? As draconian of a policy as this is, will it succeed? And the answer is, they absolutely can do this, but it will absolutely fail. Because they can enforce it today, it'll be a little harder to enforce it next week. It'll be a little harder to enforce it next month. It will be incredibly hard to enforce next year. And the reason is you can't keep your finger in the lack of progress of the Dyke, little Dutch boy, forever. You can't do it. You can't hold people back forever. The Nazis have tried it. The Roman Empire tried it. It can't be done forever. So Lee University is a ticking time bomb of being obsoleted into the oblivion of stupid ideas. And that's what the future holds for Lee University. And then my last thought is to the exact point that John makes, but I want to add a fine point to the ignorance of this. Again, my standard of your decision making of why you would issue a memorandum like this that we've been considering for years. Well, let's take gay and sexual identity out of it and insert, just as John said, black into it, or Jewish into it, or Muslim into it. They would come to the exact same conversation. And you know who did the exact same thing? It was a governor in Alabama called George McGovern. And he stood on the steps and said, I don't care what the Supreme Court says. Black children are not coming into my schools. And he lost, because he can't hold the finger back in the dike of progress. Now, they may succeed today, but that Supreme Court will turn over, and we'll return back to a Bill of Rights that is enforceable. Lee University's time of existence is now on a countdown clock, in my opinion.
We can all hope for that.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus